Hi, Professor Wills here. So, we've been talking about abstract expressionism in this modern art class, and we've certainly met some names that really launched this whole very American art movement and style. Gorky, Willem de Kooning, Jackson Pollock, Lee Krasner. There comes after, just within that same zone of sort of this mid century American period, another group of artists, slightly younger, who are also based in New York City, are also very drawn to these large scale and then gestural approaches to painting. And they seek out this, what they call sort of the first wave of abstract expressionist painters. And they're hanging out with them at the Cedar Tavern. And this slightly younger group is nicknamed the second generation abstract expressionists. And what's cool about them is they are made up of many women. So let's meet a couple of those women making up the second generation or second wave of abstract expressionism. All right, very good. Let's get this PowerPoint set up for you here. Very good. All right, here we have our first artist and a last name you may recognize. This is a painting by Elaine de Kooning. It's called Harold Rosenberg number 3 from 1956. Elaine de Kooning was indeed married to Willem de Kooning. They met in New York City and were very like-minded in their desire to move the pawn, so to speak, on the game board of modern art. Willem de Kooning, of course, cast a long shadow, not unlike the marriage between Lee Krasner and Jackson Pollock. And in some ways, his star rose more dramatically and brightly than hers, but her contribution to art is very much worth paying attention to. She had a unique approach and subject area in gestural approaches to abstract expressionism. And she was very active. She always had a seat, so to speak, at the cool table. If we think high school, the cool kids table at their frequent hangout, that Cedar Tavern. She even joined her husband when he took a position as a visiting artist at the famed Black Mountain College in North Carolina, where she connected with another name we've met in this class, Joseph Albers. Before we discuss her contribution to art, the application of gestural expressionism to the area of portraiture, it's important to mention her contribution to art criticism, since as a woman, it was also extraordinary that she was hired to write for the contemporary art magazine of the day, Art News, providing a voice to further elevate contemporary art and its groundbreaking developments beyond New York City. So she was able to write about abstract expressionism, write about avant-garde American art, and then this was such a large-scale, widely circulating publication that it helped bring attention to it. And for those who were more traditionally oriented in terms of their artistic taste, it really helped, prime the pump, so to speak, to get people more on board with this very dramatic shift in American modern art. The guy that got her started in this is who you see in this portrait painting. Harold Rosenberg was one of the main art critics in New York City, and they were good friends. So in this painting, you can see her typical approach to this gestural portraiture she's known for. She uses bold color and vigorous paint strokes to capture Rosenberg energizing the painting beyond just a traditional seated portrait. What's interesting about it is the energy of the brushwork and the color. At the same time, you can see how very relaxed he is, posing for her. He's slightly slouched in an armchair, holding a cigarette and a drink, legs stretched out with a slight grin on his face. A very warm and friendly portrait for one of the inner circle supporters of the abstract expressionists. Moving on to our next female artist, one of the second-gen abstract expressionists. This is Grace Hardin. And I'm just showing you a photograph of her taken back in 1958 when she was able to achieve enough recognition for her contribution to modern art that she got a spread in the #1 circulating magazine of the day, Life magazine. Of course, that kind of public exposure, it was sort of like the People magazine of the day, got her a lot of attention and, of course, helped American awareness of modern art as well in general. Like de Kooning, Hardin was equally impressive. She was a divorced mother with one child and had no formal training in art, but came down and moved to New York City from upstate, and through a sheer act of will became rapidly educated through myriad sources in painting, started hanging out with other modern avant-garde artists and the abstract expressionists at the, of course, Cedar Tavern. And it's there that she was able to quickly arrive at a style that is characteristic of abstract expressionism, but distinctly her own as well. It's this mix of both figuration and abstraction. So figuration, I mean that there are objects within her paintings that you can recognize. Let's take a look at an example. This is one of Grace Hardin's paintings called Giftwares from 1955. So here in this painting, instead of a typical still life arrangement of a bowl of fruit or objects arranged on a cafe table that are often the studies for early artists like the Renaissance artists, or even moving up to the era of Picasso or Matisse, Hardin instead portrays a crowded view into a shop window of a kind of home goods store. So you can imagine walking the streets of New York, and the window shopping is just a big part of that experience. It's not highbrow, though. It's not like the stuff you'd see in the shop windows at Saks Fifth Avenue or Bloomingdale's. It's more of an everyday storefront that one would pass by. Inside, you would see objects like lamps and glasses and vases and maybe some furniture. But once again, you can see the bold patches, brushwork, and layering of colors and form that make it very much aligned with the sensibilities of abstract expressionism. It's an interesting comment also about consumerism, with the objects in the painting, things that one could purchase in this sort of booming post-war economy. And then it also has sort of a tongue-in-cheek quality to it, in that the painting itself is an object that's for sale as well. Grace Hardin had a fantastic decade in the 1950s, and really it was really remarkable for a woman in this era. In 1953, her painting called Persian Jacket was acquired for the collection of the Museum of Modern Art, a super big deal for a woman artist. She was also the only female artist to appear in both of the Museum of Modern Art's seminal 1956 shows, 12 Americans, alongside many big names, as well as the New American Painting exhibition that toured Europe from 1958 to 59. So she was, right along with the big names of Jackson Pollock, Willem de Kooning, Mark Rothko, whom we'll meet shortly, and others, really at the A-list level, which is, again, very remarkable for a woman of her era. All right, thanks for joining me.